welcome back to Black Girls Speak Up podcast. It's Jasmine, your host. I'm back with another episode. And like as always, I feel like every episode is just gonna be magic because, hello. We're here having these very intentional conversations that we need to have, especially in our community. I feel like it's very necessary. So I'm here with another guest. And this guest is actually the one responsible for giving me the name of this podcast. I don't know if she remembers that, but she is the one that gave me the name when it was time for me to make this journey again, being back in the podcast space. I was like, I already have the name. I already knew. So welcome, Lynette.
Hi, Jasmine.
Hi, Lynette.
Hi, everybody. This is, as you were talking about the name, and it brought me back to the moment.
Yes.
And I started to, feel where we were.
Yes.
That particular day, we shared a lot.
We did. It was a very open and intentional conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It was. And I feel like that's why having you as a guest on the podcast is only right, because a part of this journey, it has been a very long journey. But it has also been very intentional, having the necessary conversations with people that help pull certain things out of me to help me on this to where I need to go.
Yeah.
Because it's not just one moment, one space of oh yeah, this is what I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
But it's you have to unpack a lot of stuff.
Absolutely.
So that you can then move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And you're one of those people that I was like, oh, this is where I'm at. It's been a lot.
Yeah, it's an honor knowing you, Jasmine. You are very special, and your impact on the world and the community and those that know you personally, it's huge. You meet people as you go along. Some people have that gift where they never forget a face.
Yeah.
But I never forget a personality, a person,
Yes.
an influence, a moment.
Yes.
And you are definitely one of those people. I just look for you in the stars, my dear.
Oh, thank you. That means so much.
Yeah.
So, Lynette, I'm going to call you Lynette.
It's okay.
Yes.
It's okay.
Lynette Spaghetti is what I used to call her. Tell the people a little bit about you, about your what you do. You on the radio. You do so many things. So tell the people a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So remember, you got to keep me, on time.
Listen, I know.
Okay. So my name is Lynette Green, and I am professionally an accountant, a son of God, minister of the gospel, ordained elder in the year 2001. And I have been serving the Lord faithfully since then. And he has blessed me to build an amazing career in accounting and finance. A few years back, we'll get to that. A few years back, I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina.
Yes.
And several years back, 2011 to be exact, I launched a radio show because at the time, and still even now, my passion is for women.
Yes.
And the roads that we've taken over our, various life spans. It feels like sometimes you just spend, it's a couple years, but it feels like a lifetime.
Absolutely.
And so I have this passion to talk to women, share their stories, and so we started Live Talk with Lynette. And we were there in Charleston on a secular radio station Sunday nights at 8. And we did that for years, gained the respect of those who've been in the hosting community. Station manager was a member of my church. I said to him, you know what? I'm ready to do this. We did some pilot episodes, and before you know it, we were there, and it was years later, and gained the respect of those in that community, and it was a great experience, and still is. So I've always had this passion for radio. People who hear me think I've been in someone's classroom sitting with some professor, who has a degree in communications or broadcasting or whatever.
Yeah.
But it really is a gift. And I really think that any gift that you've been given is not for you so much. It's for the people.
Listen,
Jasmine, it's for the people.
That is so real.
Yeah.
And as much as you think that you're going through certain things for yourself, or like in the midst of it, it feels like, well, why is this happening? But it's so that you can share that with somebody else.
Absolutely. If you are living a life that is focused only on you, you're not living.
Yeah.
You're not living.
Yeah.
You're absolutely missing out on something so much bigger than you, and something that is so satisfying and fulfilling. You know, moms get that when they give birth to those babies. Like, you start living for those children
Immediately.
100%.
Yes.
And they don't wait to ask you when to cry.
No.
It just happens. So you've got to be on your toes.
Facts.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with life.
Yes.
You're constantly looking for that person that you can pour into, the person that you can make a difference. And, you know, for those of us that do radio, TV, sometimes we don't get to meet those individuals, but you're impacting people for sure. And that's what life is all about.
Absolutely. So we're going to dive in, because I feel like we could talk about so much, from the finance to like, there's so many things. But what is really specific that I want to discuss with you today is, one, your walk with God, and how that has transformed to you living such a very intentional life now. Because even like you mentioned, you started 2000, you started on the radio, and I feel like at that point you had to make some decisions.
Sure.
But even before then, because we've shared some deep things, so absolutely. I know part of your journey, but that's not my story to tell. So it's how much ever you want to share, but like, at what point in this journey, in this walk with God, did you feel that shift and that need to like change things up in how you were doing things?
So, gosh, where do I start? I think the first thing I want to say is, when you're walking with God, your life really is not your own. Yeah. It really isn't. And the longer you walk with Him, the more time you spend with Him, the more time you spend in prayer and in worship, the more like Him you become. You think more like He does. You see, you feel and sense more like He does. So for me, you know, and I, you know, Jasmine, sometimes I try to stay away from certain terms because I don't want to sound superficial. Correct. Or sound religious. But it really is walking by faith. And there are a lot of things that I can honestly say are not things that I put my finger on. I had no idea that there was a gift to speak to people and be confident in this setting. I had no idea of that, but He did.
Oh yeah.
You know, so it's really, it's not always been me being able to discern where I needed to be, when to make that turn, and how to make that turn. It hasn't always, it's almost never been me. It's always been Him leading me. My hardest job was dying. That's the hard part. It's dying to yourself.
Yeah, I was literally going to ask you about like your discernment and like making those decisions, but it's it's literally you saying, okay, this is not my walk.
Absolutely.
It's not my walk. Like, I know the losses, the things, all of the things and the processes that I've gone through within my life in these 35 years. It's not for me.
No.
Because there's somebody out there that's going to even just have a brief conversation with me that's going to be like, oh my gosh, I really needed that because this is what's going on in my life. And I needed somebody's voice outside of my own that can say that you will get through this. You will make it through the other side. So, all of that is a part of your dying. You absolutely.
know, that's what we need to be focused on as believers. It's just dying. You know, dying to this flesh, the carnal life that we see so glamorously presented every day.
And it looks great.
It looks phenomenal, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember having this conversation, the Holy Ghost, and I was sitting and I was watching a particular Real Housewives. You know, I won't say which one, but I was watching a particular Real Housewives, and I remember thinking, you know, I could do that. You know, I could. This isn't, you know,
It's easy.
It's easy.
Yeah.
This isn't because I can do this. You know, I think this way. Blah 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 blah. And the Spirit of the Lord very quickly convicted me. And out of that conversation with him, which wasn't very long at all.
Yeah.
I mean, because I was already dead, Jasmine. But, you know, but listen, I was already dead. But your flesh never stops being flesh.
Oh yeah, for
It
sure.
never stops being flesh.
Sure.
It's always ready for the moment to activate.
To activate.
It's ready for the moment to activate. So, you know, I had a flesh moment, and I had this conversation, and he quickly reminded me by asking a question, almost like God asked Adam in the garden, like, is this what you want? When I tell you, I was so convicted. And out of that moment, actually, I wrote a song. I wrote a song, and I actually just shared it with the worship team at my church.
Are you serious?
Yeah, so I think at some point we might get it done, but I'll never
amazing.
forget that moment. And so my life becomes moments with God.
Yeah.
It doesn't really summarize itself with celebrations.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, like you remember when you graduated from college or you graduated from high school, your first boyfriend, your first kiss, and you know, your marriage, first marriage, you know, whatever the situation is.
Yeah.
You know, people kind of line their lives up that way. Not when you are walking with God.
Yeah.
On
It almost blurs together. Because you're not, like you said, you're not defining these specific things. It kind of like the time just seems to pass.
It does.
It just seems to pass you by, especially when you're like, I am focused on what God has for me only, and not like the fleshly things that I want for myself, that I'm trying to obtain for myself. But when you're like, it's like time just flies. It's like this year, what?
Yeah. And he has a way of giving you back that time. Because sometimes you
Absolutely.
feel like you have missed some moments.
Yeah.
You feel like you've missed some things. That just, you know, I call this flesh a cage sometimes. It locks you into everything that goes on around you.
Yeah.
But when you're in those eternal moments with God and he makes a shift in your life, it's like he restores, he redeems time.
Yeah.
You know, and he gives you back time, and he preserves you in a way that, you know, vitamin C or vitamin D cannot
do it.
preserve. He knows how to preserve you. So, you know, there's a whole lot of instances and situations and circumstances I've gone through in my life, in my walk with God.
Yeah.
And I have to call them dying experiences. They were all helping to, you know, alleviate me from the pressure of living like the world wanted me to live. And, you know, they're not decisions that you get up in the morning and make. You know?
Absolutely not.
You really have to walk that out with God. And it happens on a daily basis. So, yeah. What'd you ask me?
Now, there is not one, you don't feel like there's one specific like spiritual awakening that you had in your journey. It's just been micro moments.
The significant miracle is salvation in and of itself. You know, I love to tell my story in that I did not get saved.
Gotcha.
In a church.
Gotcha.
Although I went to church from a little girl all the way up, only been a member of 2 churches. Technically, after moving to Florida, 3. As a little girl, you know, you go to the church your parents take you to.
Absolutely.
So I grew up United Methodist, but after giving my life to the Lord, I changed churches, and that was really my first church as a believer, but I didn't get saved in that church. I was listening to my pastor at the time preach a message of the gospel that I'd never heard before. And to this day, nobody preaches it like he does. But it impacted me. And I made a decision while I was at church that I was going to give my life to the Lord on Sunday, because I was still religious in my thinking.
Got it.
And I equated, that experience, with church.
Yeah.
And God showed up in a different way. So I got in my car, I went home, and I got in my bedroom. And before I knew it, I was on my knees and I was praying. And I confessed my sins to the Lord. And I accepted Jesus into my heart. And I was filled with his spirit. And I was a puddle before him. It's something that you never forget.
Yeah.
And then I went to church on that Sunday. I had a meeting with my pastor at the time, and I told him what happened. He wanted me to testify. And I'm like, testify? I intentionally, Jasmine, went all the way to the back of the church and sat on the last pew.
Because I'm not getting up in front of everybody.
Okay, which is so funny because I am just not that person.
Yeah.
But he knows who he makes us to be. From the birth canal, it's an amazing journey. I advise and get saved. Okay, if you're not, just get it done. It's a journey that you cannot compare to anything you can experience in this life.
Yes. And I feel like that's such an amazing thing, because from that moment, that choice, that decision, you really started to live very differently and very intentionally.
Absolutely.
After that.
I was a different person.
Yeah.
Like for real, a different person. And, not according to the religious standards.
Correct.
But my mind was different. God's given me two major miracles in my life. The first one was emotional. And I think this will probably take us down that road. But the first one was an emotional restoration. He fully restored my esteem. When I was in college, I was a victim at the time of date rape. And so my esteem was wrapped all the way up in my virginity.
Yeah.
Well, I was no longer virgin.
Yeah.
So that part of my life, or what I knew or thought myself to be, was over. And you grow up kind of idolizing that, because it's what your grandparents and your parents and your aunties and you are asking you literally, and it's a big deal.
It is.
It's a big deal. So I'd lost that, right? And so all of me went out the window along with it. And so for years I walked around missing that part of me, and the Lord restored it 100%. So the first ministry that I was able to establish was a ministry called For the Love of You. And it is all about restoring that person as a woman that God intended you to be.
Yes.
So you walk through those things that broke you, those things that caused you to maybe take a different path than that you would have not chosen for yourself had you not had that experience. You work it out. I call it like regurgitating, like you just get rid of all of it. And then God puts back in place what he intended you to be and intended for you to have from the beginning. Full restoration.
First
100%.
of all, I'm so sorry that happened, because it's such... the fact that we as women, you hear that story so often, and it really distorts the path that God had originally intended for you. And it really, if you're not able to, like you said, find some restoration in that, and like, I'm still worthy, I'm still who I'm called to be, I'm still this person. If you don't ever find that, it will really take you on a different path in your life.
And imagine not knowing those things.
Yeah.
You're already kind of lost.
Yeah.
And then to have what you thought was the right mindset taken away from you. I'll never forget it. You know, I had the whole, I was held down. I mean, I'll never forget it. It was, something that marked my my time. I'm being careful with my words because they're powerful.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that I don't, lock myself into that space
Yes,
and time.
absolutely.
You have experiences, you don't live in them, you take
Right.
the wisdom from them and you go on.
Yes.
So I want to make sure I don't lock myself into that time. That's why I said I was a victim.
Correct.
Definitely not a victim anymore.
Correct.
But yeah, I'll never forget it. It takes a power from you that you never think that you're going to get back.
Yeah.
And counseling helps, but there's a healing that can only come from a certain source,
Yes.
and a restoration, not just healing, but getting you to a place of wholeness. And that was important for me and needful because, again, my life was a seed to be sown for other women who needed the ministry that was on the inside of me. And I don't know that I would have made those choices
Listen,
had I not gone through that.
and I feel like that is a part of like being able to finally live intentionally, because there were so many people that needed your story. There's so many women that they would not get the relief and the deliverance from what they were going through if they had not heard your story. And so it's like, yes, on one hand, it's upsetting because nobody deserves to be a victim.
Yeah.
And then when it happens to you, you have to eventually shift your mindset and figure out, how can I not live in the victim mentality? How can I turn this around to be the person that I'm supposed to be? And the people that are supposed to be impacted by my life, supposed to see that I am up, I am walking with God, I am living how I'm supposed to live.
Yep.
What is oh my gosh. What does that look like for you? That's the past, right? And it took time. What did that journey look like for you? That healing journey, yes, walking with God, but what did that fully look like for you? Was it just therapy? Was it what all helped?
Yeah. So, the process of me healing and walking into my wholeness
Yes.
was me walking other women to that same place.
Yeah.
Right? Because like I said, God's given me 2 major miracles in my life, and that was the first one. So I didn't sit in front of a therapist. I did not have to talk about the experience. He literally restored 100% who I was, the lights came on.
Yes.
A very, very, very bright light came on and exposed me to me, right? But in terms of a process, it was me holding hands with another lady on the other side who had gone through something different. I'll never forget, I actually have intentions still to write a book that just tells our stories.
Yes.
But I'll never forget the first lady that came through that ministry for the love of you that I talked about earlier. She's deceased now, but her story is unbelievable. From being bounced around to foster home, to foster home, to foster home, having dealt with being raped and molested. I mean, her issues were unbelievably piled high.
Yeah.
But being able to grab her hand, and then on the other hand, another young lady, who was rejected by her family and who had also gone through some abuse with family members and in a relationship. So we all have different stories, but that was healing for me.
Yes.
Being able to grab the hands of my sisters and walk them through the Word of God and walk them through my experience. And it gave them hope. It gave them hope to know that they can live past this time, because a lot of people get stuck. lot of us get stuck.
Oh yeah. In so many different levels of whether it's grieving, whatever you find yourself in that situation, you can get stuck in it. But it's like you don't have to. But it's very important that you walk them through that.
Yeah.
They probably would still be bound by those situations.
Oh sure. There's a lady in her 80s that I know is still trapped, and her life has moved on. She had relationships, she's got children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, but just trapped in a bitter cycle at that age. Yeah. So you really have to be intentional. I think that's our buzzword for this podcast.
It is. No,
you really have to be intentional about your healing.
Absolutely. And yes, I try not to say intentional.
I know.
So many times, but there is something very important about making a decision. The first thing is making a decision.
Absolutely.
To say, I want this to change.
Yeah. That's step one to deliverance. You have to participate in that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's by making a choice.
It's
be
faith without works.
Yep.
That's the work.
100%.
That's part of the work. That's the first step. Okay, I need to get from point A to point B. I have to do something.
Absolutely.
That first step is making that decision to say, yes, I'm ready for a change. So, many. It always touches my heart, because knowing that simply you making a decision to change something about yourself, to make the restoration, like start the process of restoration, because you had to make that decision.
Yeah.
Even with as crazy as your situation was, you had to make that decision to like, I'm ready for this to change.
Yeah.
I don't want to be stuck how I'm feeling. I don't want to live in this space anymore.
Yeah.
So you make that decision, and God's like, okay,
let's make it happen.
I'm gonna meet you where you are. I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm such a sap, because whenever I do hear people's stories, I'm drawn to the process of it. I'm drawn to what it takes somebody to get through something. I really am. And that's why, that's part of the point of having this podcast, is talking to people about their process, because so many people get stuck at different points of it because they don't feel like they can make it out, or they don't feel like, whatever the case is, whatever the situation is, you feel like you can't. And so when you are able to talk to somebody about how they made it to the other side.
Yep. Absolutely.
And it's like, no, you're never 100%, right? Because God is still every day working on who you are and working you through things. But to get from one part of your journey to another and see that God is still holding strong with you, still holding you tight, still walking hand in hand with you, as long as you're showing up.
Yeah.
Even when we don't want to completely show up for ourselves.
You're absolutely right. And for me, that's where, and I've been walking with the Lord now 30 years. Last year was 30 years. So there's more of him than there is of me at this point. But the blessing is I haven't forgotten.
Yeah.
And so being able to talk about what I experienced and tell people about what I experienced and walk people through what I experienced while I'm walking them through what they experienced, so they don't get stuck in cycles, so that they can live productive lives. And, while you're talking, all of these thoughts are just popping in my head. You're going through this dying process, but as you're dying, there are some other muscles that are building. Your of course your spiritual muscles are building, your faith muscles are building, because life doesn't stop. Ministry doesn't stop. People who have needs, that's always going to be a thing. So we don't always have time, to get off of the path and, go to the beach and say, okay, I'm not praying for anybody today. We don't always have those options. So it's a constant outflow, but he always replenishes. You're always restored, and you're always built up in your most holy faith. So I think that if we just keep talking, if we keep our mouths open, Jasmine, and I think this was some of our conversation from that day.
Yes.
We don't talk enough. And we don't talk enough about the right things. Yes. And the right things are the things that matter, not the things that don't matter.
Correct.
That's what we need to talk about. That's why this podcast and so many like it, and it's why it's so important.
Yeah.
We have to keep our mouths open.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ooh. That's why we're here, guys. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
I have so many questions, but I'm trying to not go too far, because I could really be sitting here all day with you.
I know, it'd be 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock.
I know, we'll still be going. So what I feel like in the midst of everything that you're doing, there's a level of protecting, your inner being and your peace with your journey, because you do pour out a lot. So how do you go about protecting your peace within everything you do?
Yeah. That's another intentional thing that you have to do. You have to see what's most important.
Yeah.
And what you don't have to do, don't do it. There's a whole discussion about the power of no.
Yes.
And how we've got to learn to use the word no. But it's not even about so much saying no to this, that, and the next thing. It's about knowing what's important.
Yes.
And purposeful.
Yeah.
Those are the things you choose. Those are the things that you prioritize, and they help to keep you in a safe place.
Yes, I agree. And do you also set saying no is a boundary, but do you have to enforce any other boundaries to make sure that, listen, I'm gonna say no because I know I need to. But
so yeah, there's a choice that comes before no.
Yes.
So you choose your atmospheres.
Yes.
You determine who you're going to say yes to, and you determine who you're going to say no to.
Absolutely.
And then you determine when to pick up the phone and call whomever.
Yes.
And say, let's do this together.
Yes.
Those are all decisions you make. You have to control your environments. And the more you do that, the less you have to say no. The less you have to try to figure out, is it okay for these two people to be in the same room? Are they going to get along? Listen, I
don't have time for that.
I just don't. I don't have it. So here's what we're going to do. We're just going to control these atmospheres.
Yes.
Make sure that they're always conducive to safety for me and for any and everybody else that's going to be around.
Absolutely.
You just have to protect your atmospheres and protect
Absolutely.
those areas so that you don't even position yourself to where you have to deal with something negative because you've got to tell somebody no, you can't.
Yes. Yes. Ooh. So do you, in protecting that energy, do you have, and moving throughout the world as you do you ever have those specific moments where you're really checking in with yourself and saying, okay, this is where I'm at, especially whether it's your spiritual journey, it's your walk in the world, however it is, do you have those moments where really I need to take a
100%, and it's often. I journal. I have every year for my birthday, I buy myself a journal. I think I missed my birthday in 2024 of getting a journal, but every year I buy a journal.
Yes.
And I write in it, not daily, not every day, but I write in it in those intentional, I said it again, times where, and here's the barometer, Jasmine,
Yes.
when you start making decisions that are off the beaten path.
Yes.
If you start to lack self-care, which I went through a whole season of not really caring for myself the way I should have.
Yeah.
When you start making decisions like that, something needs to be addressed.
Yes.
So you've got to take the time to figure out what's going on. Let me go back to the last good decision I made for myself.
Oh, that's good.
And then look at what brought me to this point where I'm not making good decisions for myself. Figure out that time in between, see what happened, and not necessarily fix it because it's a moment, but make a choice to choose differently the next opportunity. And then sometimes you have to make that opportunity.
Yes.
So journaling is something that I do when I recognize that I am wonky. You know, I'm walking a little wonky right now.
I need some adjustments.
Some adjustments,
Yeah.
some stability. Something's a little off here. And it really all comes back to what decisions am I making that are not good for me, that are not good for my walk with God, that are not supportive of what He's doing in my life. And then backtrack. When's the last time I made a good decision? And figure out that space in between, and you'll find the thing that caused you to go left.
Gotcha. That's good. When was the last time I made a good decision for myself?
Yep.
I have never thought about it that way. I feel like you just try to especially with self-care, especially, I'm a mom and this girl she's getting older. It's crazy.
She is everything.
It's crazy.
She's all the things, guys.
All the things. And so you definitely have those moments where you're like, I've been taking care of all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So where is my self-care? Where is I'm gonna that's up here now. That's up here.
For sure.
When was the last time I made a good decision for
yourself?
That's good. Have there been things that you've had to unlearn in your journey? It's absolutely.
Yeah. So, and this I think probably goes back to some of what we shared that day.
Yes.
I was married before, and I had to unlearn just about everything that I did learn or that I was taught in that relationship. I had to unlearn it. I had to heal, unlearn, and then be restored. It was just sex. there was
Listen, we're
no
gonna have
intimacy.
to have a Black Girl Speak Up after dark, and we can dive into all
there
that.
You go.
More.
There you go. But there was no true intimacy, and what that marriage did was it robbed me of experiencing true love,
a deep love.
And it's what God had for me.
Yeah.
He wants us to experience that. I believe a husband is a covering that expresses the love of God for his woman, his wife here in the earth.
Yes.
So that it when you get to heaven, it's not foreign. When you're in prayer and you feel that love. I mean, of course, there's no comparison to the Father's love, but your husband should be able to express some of that in the earth.
Yes.
And I believe that's the way God intended it to be. I didn't have that experience. So I had to unlearn sex and unlearn intimacy and just everything that I thought, because people teach you how they want to be treated.
Oh yeah.
So
Absolutely.
he taught me what he wanted.
And that was all. There was no. Yeah, and that's unfortunate. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
It is very unfortunate. I wouldn't change it. It helped to build me into the woman of faith I am today.
Yeah.
I did a lot of praying, during the relationship. But that is definitely something that I had to learn. We'll just have to wait for the After Dark episode, guys. And
it's
then
coming. I promise you it's coming. I promise you. It's already up here.
See, we give birth to things when we get together, don't we? So now we know we've got to do an After Dark.
I just want you to leave the people, because there's so much. We could be here, like I said, for a long time. Leave the people with something about this journey that has really transformed you, and that would speak to somebody who is in the midst of being transformed. They're in the beginning phases of God speaking to them, and they need to hear something that is really.
Yeah, I would say this to everybody. The same faith that you have in God, try putting some in yourself. Trusting yourself. Trusting what you hear. Trusting what you sense. Trusting what you're thinking. Because for me, that's the Lord giving me an opportunity to participate in the purpose and in the future that He has already ordained for me. Those are opportunities. Your senses are opportunities for you. I had a conversation with the Lord, and I said to Him, I know that I have faith in you. That's how I got to this point. But I want to see how much faith you have in me.
Yes.
That positioned me to be challenged outside of my box, have some courage, have some faith in myself, stop second, third, fourth, fifth, seventh, 10th, 100,000th guessing myself, and trust that He was literally establishing my thoughts.
Yes.
And that's what I want to share with everybody. Have some faith in yourself. You got faith in God. You know that He brought you this far.
Yes.
He's brought you to where you are. But there's always something greater in Him. Yeah, greater works.
Listen, facts on facts. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. This was fun, Jasmine.
This is so good.
Can we do it again, please?
We can absolutely.
Okay.
I will definitely have you back.
All
We'll
right.
talk maybe for the Black Girl Speak Up After Dark.
After dark. I think
Because that's
a
gonna be-
kickoff episode with me would be great. Because I can give you some more details, right?
Listen, all the details.
Oh, it's gonna be
all
so
the
much
details. Thank you so much again.
You're welcome.
Listen, we're gonna get out of here. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Black Girl Speak Up podcast, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.